Welcome to the Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News. If you haven't heard of us before, we call ourselves UNN, United Network News. We are the official news channel for CARE, which stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth, because that's what we're all about. We're here on this planet to make a difference, and our newscast specifically discusses the real news. And we release this newscast through our online distribution platform every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which is usually when these episodes for this podcast come out. I do these episodes whenever we have a world situation report. So sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't. More times than not, we do have it. But if things get a little crazy, sometimes there's no time for it because operations are going on and the global deep state is going down. And that's what we're going to get into today in just a second. If you want more information about not only our newscast, but some of the other shows that we produce and how you can subscribe, become a member, you can visit unitednetwork.tv. So on this podcast, we do cover some of the stories that we talk about on the news. I try to pick out, some of the big ones and, stories I think you guys are, going to be interested in, maybe want a little bit more information on. And we cover local stories. We do that through our field messengers, which I'll tell you about in just a little bit. But we also have a new segment that we launched just this week called The New Earth. So we provide uplifting stories and really just getting you to think about what is coming next on this planet. We are in transition. If your body hasn't already told you, if your spirit hasn't already told you, we are in transition right now. We are going from being a dark planet with a lot of dark matter and dark entities controlling this planet to becoming a light planet. I mean, we're already really there. What we're dealing with now are a lot of remnants and people that think they're controlling the planet when really they have no say. They have no power. They don't even have their fun little trinkets and devices that they used to use to try to control us in the past. So we basically taken away all of their toys, but their mindset is, I'm going to rule the planet and I've got a military and I can do this and we can go to war and we can spread famine and disease and all this kind of stuff. And they can't. And they're completely broke. And you actually need money to do the war stuff. You need money to spread lies about a global pandemic, okay? You need money. And that stuff was planned, truly for the COVID stuff. That was planned like 10, 15 years in advance because you have to get all of that funding. Think of everybody that was involved in spreading all those lies, So that's what they want to do. Because that's part of this plan that they had orders for thousands and thousands of years. But we're on a different plan. We are on a different timeline, which, by the way, as I throw out some of these terms, this is not your normal newscast. You're probably figuring that out right now. We talk about things that no one else talks about. And it's a shame. It's a shame that no one else talks about it because this is how our planet really operates. But that's why we say that we report the real news. We have access to the highest security level on this planet. And we talk about, the big things that are happening, not just on this planet, but even off planet. That happens in our world situation report. And yeah, some of it's going to be surprising to you. Some of it, I'm sure you've never heard of before. Maybe some of these terms and stuff are different for you, but I encourage you to stick with us because even if it's not making a lot of sense right now, I promise you it will. But you do have to have an open mind, and, I was one of those people a few years ago, I thought the government, I kind of feel silly saying this. I thought the government was out for, the people, I thought we actually elected people that, politicians to run our government. I didn't think vaccines were bad. All my kids were vaccinated. I was vaccinated as a kid. I was not a troublemaker. Not that I'm a troublemaker now, but I definitely go against the grain because I know too much, And that's the whole point. When we share information on this podcast, on our newscast, I don't want you guys just to take our word for it. Please do your research. Start Googling, or maybe don't do Google because they censor everything. But get out your favorite search engine and do some research. Go down some rabbit holes. Think critically and ask questions. Please start using your own discernment. Our bodies are absolutely incredible, and our ability to connect with our spirit, which is very, very smart. Our spirits pretty much know exactly what's going on. So if you can connect with your own consciousness and really tap into that, then you're going to get the answers. You may not like some of the answers, but you're going to get the truth. So let's go ahead and dive into this today, shall we? This is the rundown for Friday, October 6, 2023. Our newscast always starts out with our field messenger reports. So our field messengers are people just like you that are reporting on what's happening in their community. So they don't necessarily have official training or anything like that. We do offer some things just to support you guys and, have some calls and stuff like that just to encourage you. But you don't have to have a journalism degree. Like, I spent years getting a journalism degree and doing all this kind of stuff. And really what you need are people that are passionate about whatever it is that they're talking about. And when you're talking about local news, the best people to talk about it are the people that live there, the people that are experiencing it, right? So we ask you guys to tell us what's going on. And then you guys send us information, and we have a production team that puts together these reports. And if you want more information on that, by the way, and how you can become a field messenger, you can go to unitednetwork.news. So that's our news website. And there's a tab at the top that says Become a Field Messenger. I've got a couple stories I'm going to share with you today. I also have a little bit of a, what would I call it? Not really a disclaimer. A little bit, I guess, of an announcement, or for those of you that are planning to become field messengers, or maybe you already are, I wanted to explain kind of our company policy with something that came up today. We had a story from a field messenger, and I could tell the audio was a little off on it, and sometimes that happens, and then we can get someone from production to fix it. But come to find out, the audio was off because they were trying to disguise her voice. The person that sent in the report was concerned that someone might recognize her voice and she might be in danger as a result. So we had an internal conversation about this, and that's why I want to bring it up, because we have it's a new policy, a new company policy, that if you ever feel like you are in danger, do not do the report. Because if we were to just modify your face, your voice, something like that, then that puts your safety on us. And, everybody has different levels of safety. So this would be way too much for us to manage. But not only that, when you disguise something, there is a frequency of fear that comes out of that, right? Because people look at that and they're like, oh, they're fearful of something, right? They don't want their face out there. They don't want their voice out there. And we always tell the audience, please, please do not be fearful. This is not the time to be fearful. I'm not saying, put all your personal information out there and, be crazy. But at the same time, we have decided moving forward that we are not going to air or release any content that has to be modified in that capacity, because we don't want to spread fear. And we also don't want to be responsible for anyone's safety. So when I say go out and do these field messenger reports, use your discernment. Again, you got to tap into your consciousness and figure out if this is something that you feel comfortable doing. And if the answer is no, then please don't do it. So we were supposed to have 3 field messenger reports in today's news. And at the last minute, we dropped one of our stories because we're just not going to air stories that require any kind of disguise. Okay. So I wanted to explain that to you guys, just in case you guys are thinking about doing something and, thinking about submitting some field messenger report that might need that. What the 2 stories that we do have were great. Okay. So we've got the first story, which is about growing. It's like, gardening and things like that, but doing that in pots. Like if you have a smaller area, let's say don't have a huge yard. I'm one of those people. My yard in California is like a postage stamp. So if you fall into that kind of, category, there are still ways to grow really great food. And of course, we are huge advocates of growing your own food. As many of you already know, our food has been poisoned for a very long time with chemicals, with other nasty things in there. And it's always better for you to grow your own stuff. Now, it might be a little bit of a challenge in the beginning, but trust me, where we're going with things, and we'll get into this more in the World Situation Report, but there may come a time in the very near future where you're not going to have access to some of your favorite things. It doesn't matter if it's food or, other products, services, things like that, because everything is changing and some things are going under. And I don't think they're coming back. But what you can do is focus on what your family needs and start to do some growing. So doing stories like this about growing vegetables, fruits, things like that in pots is really awesome. This is from Julie in Australia. So thank you, Julie, for submitting that. And then Kaylin, also in Australia, I guess it's Australia Day today, does this really great report about just noticing the world around us, right? And connecting with nature and all things organic. And Kaylin, by the way, is part of our production team that helps put our Field Messenger reports together. And he was encouraged by someone else on our staff to do a report because he has this amazing sense of humor. His reports are really interesting. It's just the way he phrases stuff, and he's just very real. And so he was talking about connecting with nature, grounding, had some really great video of some of the nature and, animals, birds, things like that around him that he was just taking it all in, appreciating it. So Kaylin, if you're listening, we appreciate you and everything you do for United Network News, and thank you for your report. Now we have our news segment called The New Earth, and this has been a week, guys. Trying to get everything organized for this new block of content has been a lot. You should have seen us like running around like chickens with our heads cut off. But we're at the end of the week, and sometimes when you're working on something new, you just have to put it out there, even if it's not exactly the way you wanted something to look, or you were completely stressed out about something, or some graphic isn't made yet. There is no such thing as perfect, okay? One of the big things we ran into this week were a lot of interference from the people that don't want this content to get out to you guys. This happens to us a lot, but let me tell you what, it is way worse than it normally is. And the result is that when we're trying to do something live or live to tape with regards to the news, because we don't actually put it out completely live, but we record it as if we could put it out, right after we're done recording. Maybe we need some, edits here and there. But there have been delays, where, my lips don't match what I'm actually saying, which I know can be kind of frustrating for the audience. But these are all types of interference from the deep state, from people that truly do not want this information out. They do not want you to be informed. And so it was a little frustrating this week because we just launched this, brand new group of content called The New Earth. And we have all these people involved, and a lot of people are coming together to make this happen. And then you try to put it out on the news, and then, it's like the video gets messed up or whatever. But we're just going to let all of that go and trust that, the energy is out there, the good vibes, the good everything that we put into this segment. And, today was another opportunity for us to do that. And it got out there. May not have been perfect, but we got it out there. So this group of content starts out with this interview I did with Starry Hilder. And I actually recorded a bunch of different segments with her, but the one we released today is all about sustainability in your home, regardless of whatever kind of home you have. Now, if you don't know who Starry is, Starry has her own YouTube channel, which is called Starry, I think it's simply Starry Sustainable Living with God is the full name. I know it's a long one, with her YouTube channel. But she does tons of videos on different types of sustainability. She was also a homesteader, but she recently moved into a tiny home. So she gives us a walkthrough of some of the things because she's just kind of getting everything set up right now. I mean, I think she just moved in last month. And, she shows us things like how, the recharge for her batteries and what that looks like. And then, what to do with water. When you have water, how do you put it in containers and things like that for times where you may not have water, and what are other options for converting water into drinkable, potable water to be able to use for different things, right? She also talks about generators, and she says some really interesting things, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to watch it, about solar. And everyone's like, oh, solar generators, all this kind of stuff. That even came up in my house recently. We wanted to get a generator. My husband's like, we got to do solar. So Starry has some advice, let's put it that way, on should you do a regular generator or a solar one. So that's great. So it was a great, fun segment that we did with Starry. We also have a couple other stories that are part of this. We did a story on de-weeding coral, which you may be like, how do you de-weed coral? I didn't know it needed de-weeded. Well, it's kind of like weeding a garden. Okay, we know that our coral reefs have been damaged. And when that happens, the coral doesn't function the way that God or source intended it to function, where it can clean itself, right? So it needs a little bit of help. So we can actually weed away this macroalgae that has been forming on the coral reefs. And in doing so, this has caused a 600% increase in coral recovery rates just by going in and weeding out this macroalgae stuff. And it also proves that a lot of this high-tech stuff may not be needed. We're talking about basic weeding, guys. And not only do we do that in our garden, but apparently we can do this now with coral reefs and make a big difference. We also have a story on a veterinarian in Rwanda who is saving gray-crowned cranes, because in Rwanda, the cranes, they're kind of a status symbol. They're associated with a lot of different things. So these cranes have made it into the illegal pet trade, and they found out that there was actually more cranes in captivity than even in the wild. So obviously something needed to be done about this. And, he helps, clean off the cranes, do all that kind of stuff, and, provides a home for them. And yeah, it's really heartwarming. And then our last story is a testament to sustainability. We're going to go back to that sustainability story, because this is about lost children. They're actually siblings, and they were lost in the Amazon. They actually survived a plane crash. I mean, talk about trauma, right? Then they survived in the Amazon jungle for 40 days. And I think there were 4 children. The oldest was only 12 years old. The youngest, get this, guys, 11 months. So a baby. And I don't know what the other ages are, somewhere in between. But they were able to survive. And they credit this to their people and the knowledge that they taught them about flora and fauna and how to trap small animals. And I'm sure, how to get water, things like that. But isn't that incredible? Like, we think of our kids, I've got kids in that age range, and I'm like, I do not think they would be able to survive in a situation like that. But it's just a testament to like the basic skills that we should be teaching our kids, because you never know when something like this could happen. And obviously these kids were prepared. In our regional news, there are 3 stories we're going to go over today. The first is about electric vehicle quotes, because in the UK right now, insurance is skyrocketing for electric vehicles. And you have these drivers, or the owners of the car, right? Some of them are even trying to trade in their leases. So if you have a lease on a car and the payments get out of control, right, you can try to trade that in. But then there's usually fees if you trade something in before, your contract is up. And other people are being informed from their insurance that the insurance company just is not going to renew it. So you've got all these questions. In the meantime, what is like the World Economic Forum and everyone saying, they're like, go green, go green. And look what's happening. This infrastructure is falling apart. So it'll be interesting to see, because the people right now aren't getting a lot of like answers as to why. I mean, we basically know, right? But I mean, it's very costly. It's very costly. We've seen vehicles catching on fire because the batteries are a mess. No wonder insurance companies don't want to have anything to do with this, right? But, it's going to be interesting to see, are we going to, you're going to start to see fewer and fewer people buying electric vehicles? Are they going to go away altogether? Are we just going to somehow improve the whole battery situation? I mean, we don't want to be digging up, a lot of natural earth, for these cobalt batteries or whatever, they make these batteries out of. I mean, I've seen the pictures. It's horrible what you have to do for the environment just to get these batteries. Yeah, so we're kind of done with that, right? And obviously, drivers are going to be done with it if they can't get insurance for their cars, because that's required in a lot of places. Our next story is about a teaching policy, okay, for teachers in Rwanda. It's actually a government policy that has been in effect, but they're really starting to see the effects of this now. It's been in effect for the last year. And this government policy requires teachers to teach all subjects for students between the ages 6 and 12, which, at least in my kids' school, that would be unusual. They would teach multiple subjects, maybe. They kind of stay, when they're younger, they kind of stay in the same classrooms usually, but not all subjects. Like, what about art? What about physical education and things like that? Like, at my children's school, they would go, to other teachers for that. But this is saying basically, they don't have any money, which we know the government does not have any money. And by the way, these are government-funded primary schools that are having these shortages. They have a critical shortage of teachers, and many of these teachers have left for better paying jobs, which you can't fault them with that, right? With the cost of living and everything. And overall, people are worried about the decrease in educational quality because these teachers are being spread thin, which, this is a recurring theme. I think on the podcast on Wednesday, we were talking about healthcare workers. Everyone's talking about being spread too thin. And now we're seeing this in other countries as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We know that the whole education system needs to be revamped. It is a mess. So maybe this is just part of things being phased out, because it's kind of happening across the board, as we'll talk about just a sec in the World Situation Report. Our last story is made me feel good today. I'm not going to lie. It was about the Centers for Disease Control, which is based in the U.S., and they are phasing out the COVID-19 vaccination cards. Remember those things they made everybody have? And, people were trying to buy fake ones online, and everyone's taking pictures of their COVID vax cards, and I'm so cool and everything. Well, apparently you don't need them anymore, so I don't know. I don't know what you're going to do with them. They say if you do need a copy, so you don't have one, but you need a copy for something, you're just going to have to request them like any other vaccine information. So I don't know about you guys, but with my insurance provider right now, I can go on an app and pretty much get any of that information should I need it. So they're just lumping this in with the other vaccines now, right? It's nothing special. Obviously, their whole plan for social crediting system, the stuff that they're trying to do to everybody in China, that is not working in the U.S., thank goodness. Their system is falling apart. They have no money to implement this stuff. They obviously don't even have money to print out these COVID cards anymore. So what are you going to do? And in today's World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian, Kim starts off by talking about these calls that she's getting from operatives. And we've talked about the operatives in the past. The operatives carry out the orders from the deep state because the deep state doesn't like to get their hands dirty. And from what I've heard, a lot of these people are like older, a lot of them in their 80s and stuff like that. They really can't do much besides give orders and sound really threatening and whatever. So you have the operatives that are doing the dirty work. So they're, the deep state tells them to set up World War III and get all these contracts signed so we can go to war and, bring in some demons or whatever their end goal is. But without the operatives, none of that stuff gets done. So we do have some encouraging news that more and more operatives are calling Kim with the Office of the Guardian because she is the trustee of the Global Repository, which is where all the money is. But we're not giving them any money, meaning CARE, Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth, not giving them any money unless they agree to the restoration plan. If they just want to start World War III, and we know that they had a plan, to relaunch COVID crap or, some other kind of virus, if that's what they want to do, well, they're not going to get any money from us and they're bankrupt. So you have to have money to do those kind of things. Even as nefarious and horrible as they are, it still requires money to do. So these operatives have been checking in with Kim, trying to get information, which Kim has been providing. And, we'll see what happens with that. It is good that information gets out. And hopefully they'll talk to their deep state people and talk some sense into them. But that is not what we have seen at all. What we are seeing right now are what Kim calls the Langley Five. Okay, so these are 5-star generals. These are the old guys that I was talking about. And they are trying to get money right now. They are trying to revive different systems, part of the old systems that we've done away with and things like that. They're trying to revive whatever they can. The latest is they are asking governments to wait until Monday. So as in 3 days from now. And apparently they're going to have money for them then, but nobody really believes that they can fulfill what they say they're going to do. So this is causing mass panic. The treasuries, not just of the United States, but treasuries, central banks are basically freaking out because they don't have the money that they need. And everyone that steps up to the plate to say, hey, don't worry, I'll get you money, has been failing because there is no money for them. If they're not going to work with us, they don't get any money. So there's no new money coming into the system for them. So, Kim and I talked about this, and she thinks that they're just going to keep going down this path until everything is bankrupt, which to me is crazy. You would think that someone would send out an SOS here and be like, hey, things are going down. I would still like to make a paycheck. I still have a family to support. You would think that, more people would be reasonable with this and, just kind of come to the table and say, hey, what can we do? How do we make this work? But they are still following their deep state handlers. So they want to follow these people, but they want us to pay the bill. So Kim talks about this in the World Situation Report, that they are sending her bills to fund the government, but they're not taking any orders. And why would you pay for something you didn't order? Take a listen.
Of course, I received the bill, for the government shutdown, which I rejected. They keep sending me bills like I'm going to pay somebody else's bill. I'm not sure. I didn't order that. So, and that's one thing that, is really important for the deep state to understand. They get angry with me for what they call blocking. But yet they're still not willing to take an order, from me. Mm-hmm. So if you don't order something, why are you paying for it? It makes no sense, Right. So this is a continuous cycle. There's been some arguments and some, disagreements and those types of things over the last few days. But honestly, they're just going to keep going. There was even an intervention this morning as the operatives kind of gather, and compare notes and information with each other about what's really going on. They tried to talk to Langley Five and say, look, we don't have this anymore. You don't have that anymore. These, we can't keep going like this and setting up all this stuff and then nothing happens. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are told to set up arms deals, for the war that's potentially erupting, their world war they ordered. And, they're the ones that set up financial transactions based on an influx of money they're expecting. They're the ones that, have to keep everything alive in the political sector. And it's just all falling apart. I mean, you can see it in mainstream media now. You can see it in the alleged presidential debates and elections, and everybody's kind of it's all stalled out. Corporations aren't getting their kickbacks, so they're not, funding presidential campaigns anymore because that seat doesn't mean anything for them because they're still not getting the laws passed that they need in order to introduce, for example, new technologies and those types of things, into the marketplace. Free customs, no customs, all of those are perks that the big corporates would get from governments, and that's why they were big contributors to campaigns, to presidential campaigns and other political campaigns. And what hasn't trickled out into the world of Congress and politicians and Dumas and parliaments worldwide is that there's going to be no money. So again, today is one of those days. I always keep a little bit of hope, that some smart person somewhere will walk away from those that are unwilling to see the forest through the trees, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So I'm still going to stick with the same prediction. They'll limp along through November. They'll go on holiday break, come back in January, and I don't know how many of them are going to be around. So, have jobs, have money, buildings, So, if you've ever wanted to own, say, a Washington Monument or something like that, you might be able to get one on fire sale. Yeah, I know. Anybody want the Library of Congress? Library of Congress, anyone?
I feel like all that stuff's so cursed and stuff. I wouldn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
It might be fun to rummage through the basement of the Library of Congress. There's a lot of interesting documents and other stuff in there that doesn't hit the media, and it doesn't actually hit, let's just say it's all behind the scenes stuff. You used to have a level 23 clearance to get in there to see all that stuff. And so it might be fun. Not like we can't, I can't rummage through some other stuff, but that might be fun.
Yeah.
It's just going nowhere. It's just absolutely going nowhere. No matter how many people that are known for being worldwide strategists, political strategists, economic strategists, try to get it through their thick head, they just do not listen.
So I asked him what happens next, because we've already talked about the operatives are interested in the truth and they're trying to talk to the deep state. Deep state's not listening. So can we just work with the operatives? And the answer is yes. However, the issue is payment. You may have heard the phrase in the past that all money is cursed, and there was truth to that. It's not necessarily true anymore, and Kim and her team are clearing a lot of things that were standing in the way, but we still cannot get money directly from the Alpha system, which is the system that Kim controls, which is then connected to the global repository. So we can work with operatives, like if they got together, we can work with them, but we still have to do some clearing to be able to pay them directly. So here is Kim explaining how that process works.
Really what it's going to take at this point is information, some knowledge with proof behind it, things they can go verify. And in addition to that, money.
Which we have, right? So what would have to happen in order for them to get money from us to do the work that we need them to do?
Well, it would be, I could do it in 5 seconds through the Treasury Department, but that's not an option.
Okay.
So your account, as I've said, lives in density 1 of computers. That's where your account is. And there are 9 sequences. If you're a computer person, you'll know them as like SQL and old batching and all of that used to have to take place based on its connection in the 3rd density, which is your bank's back office. And that it would have to go through once it hits density 1. And so we're still seeing a little bit of stuff, which is not anything from the NSA or governments or Langley 5 or Rothschild or any of those people. It's all remnants that were left here by my predecessor. Mm-hmm. So, and so probably 3, 2, and 1 of density 1. So the different planes, the last 3 sequences is what I'm seeing right now. So we've made it very far. Mm-hmm. I would say, with the amount of hours and everything that we put in, I'm hoping, that can all be cleared up soon. So other than that, that's about the only thing. Now, I want you to keep in mind that for currency, money has existed on this planet in many different forms for well over for centuries, millennia. They coins with holes in Asia. People would wear them around. The Templars also traded in receipts. You could drop your gold off and your place 1, like if you were going on a ship and you were traveling, this is long before air travel, then you could pick up that same amount of gold on the other end without having to carry it with you. Mm-hmm. So that's a form of money. And then eventually it turned into what we see today, which are papers, bonds, derivatives, and all those are different forms of money, money 4, money 3. So we've developed different ways of trading. And eventually in 1978, we started moving forward into the digital age in computers. Now, since the inception of not only the financial system, telecommunications, and all of these types of things, money has never moved out of the alpha system, which is the system that I run, directly to a human being ever. Mm. So ever in the history. So let's just take, for example, from, the time that money was created. There's a lot of stuff that's taken place in the last couple of millennia, and all of that was done by my predecessor. It wasn't done by the deep state. It wasn't done by crooked bankers. And sure, we still have all those people. But again, they're trying to gather the troops, rally the troops, tell everybody how important they are. And none of those people will actually talk to us. So we had to actually find another way to do this without asking a human, without involving governments, without doing all of this stuff. And I feel like everything happens at the right time.
I would agree with that. I think everything does happen. It's God's timing. I always say it's not my timing, it's God's timing. And then I look back and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's why it didn't happen at that time. So I know everybody is waiting for project funding, and that's what Kim's talking about. When it gets down to that level 1 is when money from the alpha system, from the global repository, can come to the people directly, which, again, never happened before. So this is something totally new. And it sounds like with the operatives, they're kind of on the same level as the rest of us. They're a level 1. If Kim could work through the treasuries to do this, that would be easier because they're a higher level. But they're not cooperating. So now we got to get down to the lower levels and be able to transfer money directly. So it's good that the operatives are asking questions. We'll see where that goes. Hopefully more and more, want to come on board. We know they're not going to get paid from the other side. So it's a matter of how quickly all this happens from our side. And we're working as hard as we can on our side to make that happen. So that is the status of the world and what's happening right now. So again, I know a lot to take in, especially if you haven't listened to our newscast before, if you're not familiar with CARE or UNN. But again, keep asking questions, think critically, do a little bit of research. And if what we said today made sense to you, then I encourage you to share this podcast with people that you care about. because more and more people, there's something that's just naturally happening within us that's like, that's a little off. What is going on in the world right now? We can all sense that something is about to happen. Some people can't really, put their finger on what exactly it is. Well, we're telling you what it is. So again, if you want more information on all the great content we're putting out, not just our newscasts, but we've got original series, we've got great videos from the Global Health and Wellness Consortium. All that's on unitednetwork.tv. I encourage you to check that out. If you want to connect with us and interact with us, you can do that on Telegram. So there's a few different resources. All the links, by the way, for what I'm about to tell you are in the description below. So I encourage you to check that out. We have the CARE General Updates channel so the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. We have a Telegram channel for that. So information goes out about all of the different care groups, whether it's UNN or GHWC or GAC, whatever. It goes out through there. And sometimes Kim will post her own notes about status updates and what the governments are doing. So that's a good one to follow. We also have United Network News Channel, and that's where we post links to our newscasts and the full version of our Field Messenger reports, because sometimes with the Field Messenger reports, sometimes they're a little bit longer. We've got a shorter one for the news, and we can go a little bit longer if it's just going straight out through our app. And you can watch all of those for free. So that's a really good reason to follow that Telegram channel. Is you don't have to have a membership to watch the Field Messenger reports. Okay. And then we also have a Telegram group, so you can do a little bit more interacting with a group than you can a channel for the UNN Field Messengers. So if you're thinking about becoming a field messenger, you're working on your story, we have a production team there that can help you and answer your questions and just kind of guide you if you need that little extra support. So those are ways you can connect with us. I really appreciate you guys listening to today's podcast, and, hopefully maybe go back, watch the newscast as well. There's a lot of other great stories we talk about. This was just a little snippet. This is The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.